Ah, High Spots and Cheap Pops, you're on the air.
Hi, Spots and Cheap Pops, ladies and gentlemen, Lottie Dottie, Silicon Steve Valley, best pro wrestling talk on the internet, period. And we're here with you again. Thank you so much for joining us. And Lottie Dottie, we are feeling great. We're feeling good. If you're checking us out on Spotify, Apple, we want to thank everybody for joining us. With Lottie Dottie, our YouTube page is growing. Our numbers are up in every particular metric you can come up with. So congratulations to the success of High Spots and Cheap Pops. And yeah, things keep on getting good here, brother. We're feeling good about the old podcast here, and took a long time to get some traction, but now that we're cooking with some grease here, and we're getting people putting some respect on the name of High Spots and Cheap Pops.
Yeah, it's great. It's definitely seeing more comments under the videos, nice reaction as well. And even though most of them can be pretty crazy in some ways, there are ones that are like constructive and even engaging, and those are the ones that if we check them out, we'll get involved as well through the comments too. So it's sort of a cool period right now. It's and hopefully we're bringing informative, entertaining, humorous, like just versions of what's going on in wrestling today.
Yeah, I mean, we're a lot better than any other group of fat assholes that do podcasts to talk about wrestling. So I'm feeling good about that. We're the best. It's amazing. But Lottie Dottie, let's get right into it. Something that and usually I wouldn't lead with this, but I get really chapped about a couple people in this wrestling industry. And some of my least favorite things about pro wrestling today, particularly on the internet, there's three of them. There's the tribalistic toxicity, where you're going to hate WWE or you're going to hate AEW no matter what. You're going to say what you want to say, and you're going to take every opportunity you can to throw shade at a company in kind of a mean, stupid way because you're tribalistic and you root for a TV show like it's a baseball team or a football team. I don't like that. Mm-hmm. I really don't like dirt sheet writers who will take something that Dave Meltzer barely says, and then they'll report it like it's fact, or any other dirt sheet writer. I mean, sometimes they bring up like ringside news, like some people who are wrong all the time. So the dirt sheets I hate, just making news where there is none. But what I really hate too, Lottie Dottie, are old hack podcasters who are in the business and had some success, but haven't been relevant in a very long time and wouldn't be relevant every chance they've had, have not been able to stay relevant for almost 20 something years. And I'm naming a couple off the top of my head, Vince Russo, and the guy I want to talk about, Eric Bischoff. This guy, when we just checked out his podcast, and it was laughable. He said he hates liars and hypocrites. The guy has been a proven liar. You can go up and down and talk to, he's a proven liar over and over and over again. You look at some of the biggest names in the history of this business. Ric Flair, Bret Hart, anyone that, Bobby Heenan. The fact of the matter is everyone considers the guy a clown. A used car salesman is a word that Bobby Heenan used to describe him. A liar. The way he treated people. And so he has had opportunity after opportunity to be something relevant. He had an opportunity to take over SmackDown in its inception when it went to Friday night on Fox. And they fired him before it even started because he was so bad at his job. And now he makes a living because people are tired of hearing him talk because he's full of shit. People are tired of hearing him talk about his 83 weeks, which is literally called 83 weeks because it's the only thing he's ever succeeded in anything he's done in the professional wrestling business. 83 weeks. And he now has gone out of his way to take shots at AEW every chance he gets, which is fine. But Dax Harwood responded. And then Eric Bischoff has this thing that he does where he likes to get personal. We're going to go through some of the comments he's made about Dax Harwood. And we're going to talk about how much of a jerk off Eric Bischoff is. At least I am.
Yeah.
He got into it this week with Dax Harwood, Lottie, and before we get into it, what is your opinion on Eric Bischoff before all this stuff happened with Dax Harwood? And in full disclosure, obviously FTR, you and I are both monster fans of FTR.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
yeah. You know what? We were listening to 83 Weeks, in pre-production, and Connor is just putting him over left and right. Bischoff in his 83 weeks. I mean, I witnessed those 83 weeks. Nitro was a big deal, absolutely, but there were so many mistakes made during the way, and I don't know. Like, I get what you're saying. I understand why you're totally pissed at him. It's a weird thing going on between he and Dax there, where it's like Dax is like sort of like, holding up the flag for AEW, and I get it, man. And I like with Bischoff, he is just going for low hanging fruit. He tries to goad Tony Khan into like replying to him. Then all of a sudden there's a stir, and then more people are interested in 83 weeks. It's an interesting cycle seeing all this, but again, in terms of Bischoff, is he a wrestling mastermind? No. Was he a good on-air personality? I would say I would give him that credit. If he's got the script in front of him and you want him to go and be the general manager for a show, he could absolutely pull that off. He was great at it. And but now you have him and Dax getting into it. And honestly, I think Bischoff slighted Dax in a way where, if you look at the full picture, as I'm sure, we're going to look at it with you here right now, it's a half truth is what he's saying, because Dax and Cash were very successful and have been very successful wherever they've been so far. So I don't appreciate where Bischoff is coming off with that for sure.
Well, let's get into what he actually said. So if we don't know, Eric Bischoff makes his podcast money burying Tony Khan every chance he gets. It is what it is, and he's very vitriol about it. He's very angry. He has almost an obsession with just talking shit on Tony Khan. And the reason he does it is because why? He had a book. Controversy creates cash. He knows if he talks shit on AEW, people like me, who I never listen to 83 Weeks, because I know Eric Bischoff is a fucking liar, and he's completely full of shit, and he has this self-grandizing bullshit that he thinks he's something greater than he actually is. If it wasn't for the NWO, he is a footnote in the history of wrestling. That's it. And he basically was in charge of that company for 5 years and drove it into a fucking iceberg to the point where it had to be sold. And he has every excuse under the sky of why he did what he did and the reasons he did what he did and all. At the end of the day, he couldn't hang. He had a shitload of money that wasn't his own. Ted Turner, he gave a bunch of really horrible contracts to a lot of people, which was one of the biggest reasons WCW is out of business, which nobody ever brings up. We never bring that up. All of the stupid contracts he gave guys who basically sat home for half the time. And
does that sound familiar?
Yeah, well, the difference is that it's Tony Khan's money. It's not Eric Bischoff's money. Ironically, there's a lot of parallels between Bischoff and Tony Khan and the mistakes they've made. There's a lot. Yeah. That's why it's hard for me to take Bischoff at anything but full of shit. Like the whole thing is where Tony's making himself part of the product and he's just not a good on-air personality, which I agree with. But Tony Khan shouldn't try to call out WWE. They're not gonna ever do it. It's just absolutely ridiculous. He's a clown and he's stupid. He's stupid. He uses the word stupid a lot. In fact, he called Dax Harwood stupid on the clip we saw. Anyway, he calls out Tony Khan for punching up to WWE, and you're talking about a guy who literally booked a match with himself against Vince McMahon on a WCW pay-per-view, cut about 3 or 4 promos leading up to that match, wasting all of our times because all of us thought it was stupid at the time. It wasn't like anyone was like, that Bischoff, he's a cad, calling out Vince McMahon. And then he wound up having Vince McMahon counted out with an actual match. And then Bischoff does a victory like he won the match and walks out. It's a joke. It's a fucking joke that he's holding Tony Khan accountable to everything else he's done, always had a good excuse for it. But when Tony Khan does something similar, he's the biggest clown on the planet. Bischoff's pissed off because he's not a billionaire like Mr. Khan is. And then he couldn't handle the fact that when WWE had a counterpunch called Stone Cold Steve Austin in the Attitude Era, Bischoff was a lost little dog where he had a mental fucking breakdown and lost all of his shit to the point where WCW said, you need to go home because you're being an ineffective douche. Clearly. You lost it about a year ago when you put Goldberg and Hogan on free TV like a fucking moron, like a dope. That was the beginning of the end of WCW, and everyone knew at that point in time, and you can go back and watch, and watch shoot interviews, Kevin Nash, talking about Kevin Sullivan's reaction to when Stone Cold had the thing with Tyson. Got real cold in here last night, Nash. Everyone knew Eric, once the counterpunch was made, Eric was over his head. And he has not been successful in this business since. And the idea that he won these 83 weeks, okay, you did win the 83 weeks, but you mortgaged literally the existence of the company to get there. A company that was producing good content and good professional wrestling entertainment that people cared about. World Championship Wrestling and Jim Crockett Productions was around for a long time. Bischoff came out, gave a shitload of contracts, and it was gone. It was destroyed within 7 years of that son of a bitch taking it over. So everyone can blow his 83 weeks all you want. He mortgaged the future of WCW, his decision-making, his contracts, his inability to manage the talent is the reason WCW is dead. Eric Bischoff is the most culpable of WCW's destruction. And this clown to continue to act like he has done anything more than get fucking lucky is a joke. He had an opportunity to do so many things in this business, in TNA and even WWE. He was there in WWE taking over SmackDown for a couple months, and they realized the guy is a fucking clown. And he had no idea what the fuck he was doing anymore to produce a real television show. That's the reality of Eric Bischoff. If it wasn't for the NWO, he is a footnote. Period. Now, I'll give him credit. He had the balls to go after Vince with a shitload of money and a shitload of guaranteed contracts, which, again, wound up being some of the biggest reasons for the destruction of the company. And he mortgaged the future for those 83 weeks. So congratulations, Eric. You still helped destroy WCW. And you're still a failure in most any other metric in your entire history in this business. Now, with that said, the low-hanging fruit you refer to, now Bischoff can't stay relevant unless he chatters about AEW. And he's like a child. He's like a 15-year-old jerk-off internet troll. He's a clown. He is a step above Vince Russo. Just one step. One step. And there are hundreds of professional wrestlers throughout in this business that'll tell you the same goddamn thing about Mr. Eric Bischoff. Clearly, I'm fired up, Vladdy.
Clearly.
Guy grinds my gears.
So why don't you tell the audience why you're fired up in terms of the current conversation with Bischoff and what he said about Dax Harwood? Why don't you read the quote?
Well, that's of course. He did get into it with Dax Harwood, and I'm glad. Thanks for reeling me in, Vladdy. I get really upset when I talk about Eric Bischoff.
I see that.
I like Meltzer a lot more, for the record.
Wow, really?
Oh, not even close. Not even close. If you listen to Meltzer and all them, they know what they're doing, but they're usually not too bad. They're not as nearly as toxic as people make them out to be. But anyway, it was brought up. So Eric Bischoff and Dax Harwood got into it this past week. Dax is defending Tony Khan because, let's be honest, Eric Bischoff spends a lot of time talking about Tony Khan. That's where he makes his money now. If it wasn't for Tony Khan, Eric Bischoff wouldn't be making money as a podcaster. And he in his gut knows it. And so does Conrad Thompson, by the way. They both know when they talk about AEW, their views on YouTube go up and their their downloads go up on their podcast. They know that. They know the game that they're playing, but they act like they don't. They act like they're so much better and above it, but they're not. They're fucking phonies. And shame on Conrad Thompson. Shame on you, Conrad. But Conrad does try to call out Eric, but not really. But whatever. I've lost a lot of respect for Conrad Thompson dealing with Eric Bischoff, but whatever. So anyway, Dax had tweeted saying, I know it's your gimmick, and I'm paraphrasing. I know it's your gimmick, and you get paid well to run down AEW, but looking at your Twitter, it's weird how obsessed you are with Tony Khan, which, by the way, I would agree with. I mean, it's bizarre. I mean, holy shit, dude. But that's how he makes his money. That's why he does it. So Bischoff clowned him back. He body shamed him. He said the chunky monkey. And it's
That
funny.
awful.
I watched this video with Conrad Thompson, who makes both of us look like fucking Jack LaLanne.
Great reference. Very timeless.
Oh my God, timeless Jack LaLanne. He's still alive, I believe, by the way. Just kidding.
Still doing push-ups, I'm sure.
Jack LaLanne's 194 years old doing push-ups. But he's in there and he calls he calls Dax Harwood a chunky monkey and all that, and they kind of go back and forth a little bit. And Dax come out and basically says that he's I mean, look, everyone knows it. The guy's a hack, and he has to talk about AEW to stay relevant. That's Eric Bischoff. Whether he wants to admit it or not, I don't give a fuck. He won't admit anything. He admits to he says that he calls Bret Hart a liar. Bret Hart has never been called a liar by anyone in their entire lives, except Eric Bischoff. And Eric Bischoff's been called a liar by 99% of the people who's ever worked for him. So that's hyperbolic. I don't know if that's a real number. But anyway, let's go into it. I'll do my best Eric Bischoff impersonation. You know, I actually think that I'm the greatest mind in professional wrestling history because of the 83 weeks that I actually achieved when I gave a bunch of mid-carders $500,000 contracts for 17 years and made WCW unprofitable and actually make them go out of business. Because I'm Eric Bischoff. So anyway, it was brought up. So what Eric Bischoff does when he's called out, instead of going after the actual things that was said and the moment at hand, he attacks them personally. He goes after them as people and as professionals. So he did this. I mean, he brought up one of the best, Conrad Thompson, who loves FTR, says it's their favorite tag team. He puts over FTR as one of the best tag teams in the world. And then Bishop goes, responding to that, according to who? By what standard? Let's use Dave Meltzer speak, because he's an analyst now and he studies. By what metric are they one of the best tag teams in the world? Certainly not financially. Can't point to FTR and say, yeah, but every time they're on television, look at the success they have in ratings. Look at their quarter hours. Look at their look and how much money they draw on the road. Of course, they're not on the road because AEW can barely get enough people to produce a television. First of all, Bischoff, no one was on the road when you were fucking managing WCW either. Your house shows were almost nil. And you want to talk about how good your house shows were in 99 and when you took back over in 2000? Want to talk about those house shows? Fucking clown. Anyway, of course they're not on the road because AEW can manage. We did that part already. So there's no metric other than emotion, which is all subjective. It's not objective, whereby anybody can state that FTR is one of the best tag teams in the world. So he's basically saying that FTR isn't a top tag team. If you look at them, great. I like them as a tag team, and as I just said a few moments ago, but to suggest that one of the best tag teams in the world is kind of like a branding statement and that we just all latch onto and continue, but it's not really true. Like, you know anything about fucking tag team wrestling, you clown. They didn't make it in WWE. Okay, Vladdy, we're going to stop right there.
Right.
They didn't make it in WWE. They were multiple time champions on every fucking brand they were on. And Vince hated tag team wrestling. What do you mean they didn't make it in WWE? Your thoughts on that comment right there?
It's completely false. As far as success in WWE, they completely had it. They won belts. At NXT, on SmackDown, on Raw, they were one of the best while they're there. And that is in an environment where Vince McMahon, the former leader of that company, hated tag team wrestling, thought it was an afterthought, thought it was a joke, never gave it its due. If he saw a tag team, he was looking at it to see which one are we going to split from who and make the next star. It was like his developmental on-air, and it was his on-air developmental, if you will.
That's a great line.
It's really what it was.
Yeah.
So that's my thoughts on the environment that FTR had to go and succeed, and of course went separate ways, found a home in AEW, and truthfully have done some incredible things there and while they were there. I mean, I'm a big FTR fan as well. They are, just throwbacks in a good way, and they remind me of, teams that I really admired when I was way younger, and basically was new to this guilty pleasure of ours. So,
Hart Foundation and the Bulldogs are two teams that come to mind right away.
Yeah.
So, and of course, Double A and Arn Anderson, Midnight Express, the Horsemen.
Yeah.
But anyway, get back into it. They didn't make it in WWE. They had an opportunity, just like I had in 2000. Just like I had an opportunity in 2019. I didn't make it. I got fired. I didn't adapt. I didn't get myself over. First of all, you were a fucking behind the scenes guy. How are you getting yourself over? The show didn't even start yet. When did you even get yourself over? You were fired because everyone knew you didn't know what the fuck you were doing. You got fired because you had no clue, Bischoff, and they knew you had no clue. They knew you were a joke. They knew you were a flash in the pan, a scammer, a car salesman. That's who you are, Bischoff. And most sane wrestling fans think that about you, especially now. I didn't get myself over. Yeah, as a producer, before the show even aired, you didn't get yourself over. Good job, fucking moron. I got fired. Yeah, you got fired because you sucked at your job. Like you got fired in TNA and like they sent you home in WCW. Clown. They couldn't get over. A lot of other people did, and they didn't. Like Bray Wyatt didn't get over. Is that why he was released? Malachi Black? You want to swerve? You want to keep going? Well, the people that Vince McMahon dropped the ball on because they couldn't get over? Fucking guy.
Triple H, the ones that Triple H favored? Well,
exactly. The one that Triple H made stars at NXT, and then Vince didn't know what to do with.
Yeah.
Like, so that right there just tells you how full of shit he is and has no idea what he's talking about. But anyway, they couldn't get over. A lot of other people did, and they didn't. There are a lot of reasons for that. But the fact is, they didn't get over. Now they're in first of all, the Usos never got over either until about 2 years ago. And they were still there.
Well, in pre-production, we asked the question, like, say in the last 10 years, who would be the tag team that you'd say got completely over? And for like a duration. And if you want to say the Usos, well, they were involved in like one of the biggest, angles in wrestling history, and they were a focal point of it. However, you take it one step beyond them, like who would you really go and name from either company, really?
NXT was the only part of WWE that cared about tag team. I mean, you had so many great tag teams. Yeah. Murphy and I forget the one that Murphy was in. What was the name? I forget the name of that tag team Alexa Bliss had managed.
Oh, you know what? That's a great trivia question because
I forget the other guy's name.
And he was like on the like a motor. He was like in a motorcycle kind of, almost like he was a veteran, so they used that. He was like, the dude from TNA was there, Gunner. He was like their manager.
Yeah, they were a good tag team, though. They were good. Murphy and they were both
Matthews. So you had Matthews, and it was a Murphy and No, was it Murphy?
Well, he was Buddy Murphy in WWE. So he's Buddy Matthews now. So It was Murphy and Mad Dog. I forget.
Look at here, everybody. I'm in a wrestling NXT today.
That's funny. But you even look at American Alpha. Like, I mean, Triple H really understood that tag team wrestling is a really great asset to have on your undercard. It keeps people involved. And you can have so many great, and the matches. I mean, again, you were the big NXT guy back then, particularly then. That was during the Bayley, Finn Balor, Samoa Joe era. And FTR was on top. Yeah. And they did draw money at NXT, and they were a big part of NXT's success, the revival. So again, it
was Blake and Murphy. It was Blake and Murphy. Blake and Murphy.
So it was not an M.
Wesley Blake.
What an idiot I am.
Nope.
Oh, Blake and Buddy. It was B's. Yeah. Anyway, so he goes on and about how they couldn't get over. And there are a lot of reasons for that. But the fact is they didn't get over. And now they're in AEW. And yes, they're swimming in a much. He threw like 4 bunches in there. What a fucking dildo. In a much smaller pond. So in their minds, perhaps they feel like a bigger fish. I'm not saying. I'm not sure. I haven't had any interactions with Mr. Wheeler. He hasn't taken to Twitter to call me out. He's ready to pistol whip you, you son of a bitch. That's why. He's ready to take his gun out and smack him right in his fucking forehead. But he said he's going to leave cash out of it. But yeah, Dax, you've had your opportunity in WWE and you failed. You didn't get over it. Well, it is what it is. I know it hurts. Listen to this jerk off. I know it hurts. Doesn't sound nice. It's so cruel, but it's also true. And now he's in AEW. He feels like a bigger fish in a 2 more muches. Jesus Christ. Much smaller pond where really hardly anybody's over. And I'm not suggesting it's all his fault, but it is what it is. Well, the idea that he feels like he can be as condescending of a douche as he is and talk about Dax Harwood not getting over. I mean, it just, again, the level of vitriol and the level of attempt low blows to Dax Harwood in those comments is a joke, and shows you what kind of human being Eric Bischoff is. That right there is a great example of why Eric Bischoff is a piece of shit. Right there. He is a douche. He is a clown. He is a car salesman. He is a con man. He's a con man. So this is me. This is me being Eric Bischoff. This is my doppelganger, Bizarro Eric Bischoff, talking about Eric Bischoff. You know, it's very interesting to me. You know, Eric Bischoff always talks about how, well, 83 weeks he beat Vince McMahon and no one's ever done it before. But I did, is what he likes to say. But you know what? The guy had a mental fucking breakdown anytime he had any pressure on him in that position. He failed miserably, and it led to the destruction of the company. He drove that company right into an iceberg, and I know it hurts. And I know it hurts that he failed in TNA. I know it hurts. I know it hurts when he went to try to go Monday nights with TNA, and it failed miserably, and he had to be fired from there because he wasn't very good at his job. He was terrible. And it's quite simply, and it's quite sad, really, because he couldn't get himself over. He couldn't do what needed to be done to be successful. And then he gets an opportunity for the biggest stage in wrestling history on every Friday night on a network, an actual network, paying tens of millions of dollars for a product of WWE, and he was given the keys to the kingdom, and he didn't even get to the first episode because he was so pathetic at his job. And Vince knew he was terrible at his job. That's why he fired him. Eric Bischoff. And he says he hates liars and hypocrites. He is considered one of the biggest liars in wrestling history. And if you want to talk about hypocrites, he calls out Tony Khan. And quite frankly, Tony Khan punches up to WWE, and he calls a Tony Khan out for it all the time. Yet he's the one who booked himself in a match on a pay-per-view against Vince McMahon and wasted everyone's time because of a personal vendetta he had against Vince. And he always has an excuse as to why it was a good idea. But again, he took a big, big ship like WCW and Jim Crockett Productions and everything that came before it, with all the legends like Ric Flair, Sting, Lex Luger, Lou Thez, that had something to do with this company. And he drove it into a fucking iceberg. That's Eric Bischoff for you. Thank you. I'll be here all night.
Yeah, there you go.
Eric Bischoff on Eric Bischoff, ladies and gentlemen. Is it a good Eric Bischoff? What do you think, Vlad?
It's pretty good. Pretty good. A little long-winded, but pretty good.
Yeah, well, that's why there's editing. Okay, fucker. Well, first of all, every time we do a comedy bit, it's long-winded. We go about 20 minutes on a Cody Rhodes interview. We use 5 minutes of it. If somebody say my name, I'm the fan.
Hello. Hi, Cody.
Eric Bischoff is a fucking douchebag. I knew that. And my father, Dusty Rhodes, knew my father. My father knew he was a douchebag. I'll tell you, baby, Eric Bischoff, he didn't know a wristwatch from a wristlock, baby. But he had a bunch of money from Ted Turner. Turner said, baby, go out and get me some style, baby. Just don't ruin the company and make it go out of business. Well, I had to hock my Rolex for my son to go to acting school. fucking, because he drove WCW out of business, daddy. He didn't know what he was doing, daddy. You know what, if you will, he was the cat that couldn't scratch, if you know what I'm saying, baby.
He was the Claude, Dusty?
I'll bang his wife, though. Eric Bischoff's got a good-looking wife. Even at her age. God bless him. His Blue Chew. She's a yoga instructor.
Oh, really?
Doesn't matter. I'm probably going to edit that part out. I don't want to be misogynistic.
Yeah, you don't want to be that way. You don't be that guy. You don't want to be the fan, the AEW fan doing cat calls to Blue Sky or whatever her name is.
I didn't hear about that. I just saw Chelsea Green, and I feel bad because I buried Blue Sky, Sky Blue. Did you call her Blue Sky? That's whatever. That doesn't matter. She can't cut a promo or work. Who cares? That's the thing. I wouldn't be doing cat calls to her. I'd be like, you can't wrestle or cut a promo.
Yeah, seriously. You're on TV way too. You're on TV way too much.
Why are you still on TV? Nobody cares.
Then we'd be called pigs.
No, then we would. It's funny. You shouldn't be yelling. These women are busting their asses, and they're putting, in many respects, their lives on the line to entertain you. You shouldn't be yelling shit at them like that. I mean, come on, it's 2024, for fuck's sake. Jerk off to it. Just jerk off to them in your bedroom, like a good, when you see foot pictures, like I do. Anyway, I'm gonna pull the fucking show out of that dark hole. But yeah, so Eric Bischoff, yeah, I mean, I've already got enough about him. Your feelings, and we'll wrap up the Eric Bischoff segment, because fuck him.
You know, I get where you're coming from. He is somebody who tries to walk both sides of the line, and he's a great manipulator, man. I mean, it's really what he is, and he has been for a long time. I've been entertained by him. I've been disgusted by some of the things I've seen on his shows. But yeah, it's just the shitty way to go about, like, trying to, like, degrade Dax on a couple of different levels, and I call horseshit on that. So,
yeah, what metric are they a great tag team? What metric? How about the Hollywood Blondes you fucking got rid of? Both of them. I guess no talent there, right, Bischoff? Because you're such a smart guy.
Well, when you mentioned this breakdown a few times, actually, one of the things I realized too was when you mentioned it, I'm like, not that it was an epiphany, but he must have thought and considered, I literally fired the guy that's destroying me in terms of talent. He let go and fired Stone Cold, and he went to WWF and was the main reason why he destroyed, ironically, Eric Bischoff.
And to this day, he's the most beloved wrestler of all time. Like Stone Cold is so beloved. It's incredible.
He had that in his hands, mind you. And if he let him be himself, that would have been a property for them. My God.
Imagine Stone Cold versus the NWO. 97 Stone Cold and then 97 NWO.
Yeah.
Fuck Sting. Spooky Sting.
Ooh, spooky, spooky.
Spooky, spooky. And Sting's coming down from the Rockers. So, yeah. So, all right. So that was it. I usually don't want to open a show with Eric Bischoff because he's not relevant.
Right.
He's just not. And he hasn't been so on a successful basis in over 2 decades. And again, he's one of the biggest reasons WCW went out of business and ruined the wrestling industry for for over a decade, where a lot of the mainstream audience has been dumbed down. They don't know what real wrestling is. And there you see a great example, and if we can show it, there you see Gorilla Monsoon and Michael Cole as a great example, a great microcosm of the differences in a wrestling fan's intelligence because of WWE. There you see Gorilla Monsoon knew every single hold and every single move's name, and Michael Cole calls most of the moves slams. Just slam. Oh, he slammed him. It's called it's called a side suplex, jerk off. But anyway, you know what? I'll just flash that thing and that'll be it.
Sounds good.
I forget.
So what do you want to? So where do you want to segue from Mr. Bischoff? You can go the AEW route. You can go to the WWE route. He has connections to both. You roll the dice there.
Well, let's head on over to Dax Harwood. I love that. The great segue is, since we're talking about Dax Harwood and FTR, let's go over to AEW. And we have Team AEW facing Team The Elite in an Anarchy in the Arena match. And if you don't know what those are, Meltzer loves them. That's all. That's the only good thing I can say about them. They're entertaining. Luckily, Moxley's not in this match yet, even though I hear Kingston might be hurt. And Moxley, because I think they're going to have Moxley have a singles match with the NJPW or the IWGP title, but Moxley would be a better fit there.
Oh, yeah.
Not Eddie Kingston with his little stupid indie chops. They're New Japan chops, by the way. You sent me this clip the other day. Let's play it. We just played it. So this is my problem with that joke. It's not an indie spot. You don't see a lot of indie wrestlers doing it. That's a New Japan spot. That's a Japanese spot, because in karate, that if you are good enough at it, you're good. Now, does it look good? I don't like the spot. I'm not going to lie to you. So I don't want to defend that. But it's more Japan.
Hill, huh?
I'm not going to die on that hill. But that's a Japanese thing, not an indie thing. An indie thing is when some little jerk off, 120 pounds, jumps on top of the top rope, and he jumps onto 6 guys, only hits 1 or 2 of them, and all 6 of them go down like bowling pins. Yeah. That's an indie jerk off move. They should have done that, and it would have been a lot of fun. That was a hell of a chop, though. That chop was vicious. I will say that. The guy sold well. So good for them. When you sent me that and you brought up Eddie Kingston, I thought that you were referring to their physiques because it was
No.
Those aren't top guys.
The spot that bothers me the most with Eddie is that rapid fire chop thing, and just where he's hitting himself. He's seemingly hitting himself harder than his opponent, and I just don't get it. And I'm just like, all right, man, I'm gonna go get a beer. I'll be back in about 10.
It's like it's chopping onions. Would you like some Parmesan cheese on your soup? You know, I don't love that spot, but it is a Japanese spot. It's not an indie spot. That was my only problem. So
he needs to retire it.
It doesn't pop the crowd either.
No,
which is the other thing. If it popped the crowd, if it was working, that's fine. But he's doing it as an homage to. I'm sure there's some Japanese wrestler he loves that did that. Whatever, I don't care.
Yeah, me neither.
Yonkers, fuck. Anyway, let's get into it. We have the Elite building their brand, and quite frankly, the Elite haven't been this entertaining in a couple of years. I think I really like what the Young Bucks are doing right now, and I know there's a negative connotation to them for a lot of reasons, but I really like what they're doing as heels right now. I still don't see Jack Perry as a star. But I like what they're doing, and I'm looking forward to this match. But you had an FTR who came to Kenny's behalf, which I love because I love how having FTR in the mix of something big, and this is big. But but Kenny comes out. He's in a hospital bed, and he says, "That was a weird promo, wasn't it?"
A little bit. I'm not sure if I liked him being in the hospital bed doing it.
And he's in the emergency room a week later.
Yeah, it's like not an emergency after a certain point, Kenny. Unless the Canadian healthcare system really just coddles them.
I'm in the emergency room again for a week now, and I look perfectly healthy. That's the other thing. He looked healthy as shit.
Yeah.
They're like, I just got done climbing Pikes Peak in Colorado, and now I'm in the emergency room again. So I didn't love that segment, but and then he's like, and he was like, and just the way he said that they were gonna let them know sooner than they think. Well, he just said they're gonna let him know tonight. So how?
Yeah.
And it was the end of the show. So how much sooner was it? For fuck's sake. So I didn't love that promo by Kenny. However, actually, there's not a however, and would be the proper word there. FTR comes out. And to rebut and rebuttal the Elite kind of talking shit on FTR and Kenny and all that. And they introduced their two partners, who's going to be Okada, Perry, and the Young Bucks versus FTR and their two new partners. And they come out, Eddie Kingston and Bryan Danielson, who hated each other 2 months ago.
But now they have respect. Remember they shook hands?
Oh, yeah, because Bryan Danielson puts everyone over and he loses every match he's in. So that's why. I forgot about that. Yeah.
Right.
But that was a nice story, though, because Kingston, because of his just being an underachieving guy, I guess his thing is he's a bum, king of the bums, he's an underachiever and all that. I'm assuming that was some real shit, though, when Kingston comes from a real spot when he cuts his promos, which I do love about him. But I mean, I spoke to our buddy John Luxa, who might actually start covering NXT for us on Moment in the Valley. We'll start doing some shots on Moment in the Valley. Great wrestling fan, super positive. And he never talks shit on anybody, but he was like, dude, like, what was the point? Like, they just threw that shit together at the last minute. And I remember one of the great lines you've ever said, Vladdy Daddy. Tony Khan doesn't book with a pencil, he books with a shoehorn. And that's how this feels. And at the time, I'm like, why are they joining sides with these guys? And obviously, they had an opportunity to both cut promos. I don't know if Eddie Kingston cut a promo because I think he hurt himself. We'll get that to in a second. But Bryan Danielson cut a promo on Collision to explain why he's in this match. because he's pro AEW. He's all about AEW. Meanwhile, the dude's leaving in 6 months. Like, he's gone. Maybe he hangs out for a match every couple months. I don't know. Or maybe he goes back to the real hot product that would take him back with open arms in WWE. So for him to be fighting, for him to be carrying this AEW brand when he said he's literally leaving, it just takes so much away from this. I think Bryan Danielson was, unless this is leading to something bigger, perhaps a Kenny Danielson match. Maybe Danielson turns. I can't see that. But unless they have a plan where this is leading somewhere really cool, which I don't have a lot of faith in, Danielson shouldn't be in this match at all.
Nope.
Because I don't buy the fact he's all AEW. In fact, if you put a gun to my head, I think he's going to be at next year's WrestleMania.
Yeah.
Your thoughts, Lottie?
No, I agree, and this is and it was, and I'm kind of watching that segment too. I didn't see the EVPs getting much of a reaction. Even FTR's reaction's been a bit muted of late. However, when Danielson came out, man, that was huge. And it's like, and this is what's sort of bittersweet with him. As you mentioned, you could see him being in WWE next year. I agree with you. And like we were talking last week, maybe, talking about maybe Danielson having his moment at Wembley. I hope it's not like a main event or something like that. I'll be honest with you.
Well, no, Danielson said he wants to. First of all, his contract is up before All In.
Oh, before it, okay.
He just came out. He had an interview. The contract's up before All In, but Wrestle Dream, which is scheduled for I think early October, or at least it was early October last year. Wrestle Dream is in Tacoma, Washington, right by his house.
Ah, okay.
So I'm sure he and Tony, if he wants to stay till Wrestle Dream, I'm sure Tony's not going to be like, oh, I don't have the money.
Right, exactly.
I just gave Mercedes Moné $5 million a year. I can't do that. Sorry, bye. Let's fucking go.
I got to get stricter with this budget now. No, but with that being said, so he'll be there till Wrestle Dream for sure. That might even be his final AEW match for a long time, and if not, last match, who knows? So it was a little bit weird. And then again, I don't know, who otherwise you might have chosen at this moment. I mean, I guess somebody from the Blackpool, maybe Moxley, like you said. Maybe it would have made more sense if it was Moxley and Bryan Danielson. I don't know, but yeah, I don't know. I'm not really looking forward to like an Anarchy in the Arena match with these guys, though.
I don't love those matches because the first 15 or 20 minutes of the match are just them brawling everywhere.
Yeah,
it's a waste of time. I don't like matches like that. I don't like them.
Yeah,
I don't like. Let's punch and kick each other in the stands. As a fan, if you're there, I'm sure it's great if you're seeing Bryan Danielson take chops right in front of you. But as a fan watching at home, it's fucking boring. Especially if the worst version of Wild Thing is playing for 10 fucking.
That's reason enough alone to bring Moxley into this. They got to do it.
Well, the reason Moxley might be the guy is because Eddie Kingston they're continuing, which I do like doing cross promotional stuff. Eddie Kingston had been attacked by the Bucks and Jungle Jerkoff, and Kingston apparently hurt his leg pretty badly, so he might not even be able to be in this match in a couple weeks.
Right.
So, because we're only 2 weeks away from the match from tonight when we're recording this, so I think Moxley would be the better choice. Also, he honestly, I think Moxley and Kingston would have been a better choice than Danielson shouldn't be on Team AEW. He's fucking literally leaving.
Right.
Like, why is he on Team AEW? What makes Bryan Danielson the card carrier? Because he was one of the ones that okayed CM Punk getting fired? Like, why is Danielson the guy to carry the banner of all the people? Moxley's been there since day one, for the most part. He's the first pay-per-view, first show. I consider Moxley a day one guy because you're there since the first show. Moxley makes 10 times more sense than Danielson. Eddie Kingston doesn't even make a ton of sense, but again, that was one of those things where Tony Khan was like, "Oh, what would be fun if this was the match?" Again, he's not a booker; he's a matchmaker, and he made this match. But the thing is it's the best storyline you have going on, and you're fucking it up because you shoehorned it. And when I got my buddy telling me, John Luxa, who is one of the most positive wrestling fans I know, likes pretty much everything, and he tells me that it was shoehorned. Don't fuck this. Don't fuck this storyline up. The storyline has got some shit behind it. However, you brought up a good point about the crowd reactions. Crowds and AEW reactions. Here's the reality: the reactions outside of Will Ospreay and maybe Bryan Daniels and a couple other guys, I don't even know. The reactions haven't been great from a lot of people. The energy in those shows are not great. It's like all the bitter, angry fans are there, ready to judge somebody.
Yeah.
And that flips. And then you turn around and you look at what, and you have all that. And then you turn around and you look at the energy in France, Lyon, France, where literally the crowd was the MVP of the show.
Yeah. And I wanted to touch base with you on that really quickly.
That was my segue, Vladdy. How great am I at that?
You were incredible there. I mean, my God. You brought a tear to my eyes. That crowd in France was incredible. And as I watched it, I went and like really watched certain matches there, sort of and I caught the SmackDown previous. And then I also watched, parts of Backlash, but zeroed in on the Randy Orton and Bloodline match with Randy Orton and Owens, of course, against Bloodline. Also watched the main event with AJ versus Cody, of course. Checked in with the Bayley match as well. Checked in with Jade Cargill and Bianca too. And I was amazed.
Card, bro. You watched the whole thing then, essentially.
Yeah, right? But I did watch, mainly those first two matches. But throughout, man, that crowd was on top of everything. And you know what it is? I was reminded, ironically enough, of Daniel Bryan when he did his heel push in WWE, and he went and referred to the fans as being fickle. And I even thought of myself, you and I will sit there and watch these shows and we criticize and we critique and we have, our ideas versus what they did. But that crowd in France was just appreciative of everything that was in front of them. They appreciated their physical abilities. They appreciated the storyline, the energy, and just love of the event transmitted across to the States. And then I watched AEW and WWE here at home, and we're fickle. We don't appreciate it. And it's sort of sad. If I was WWE, I would be doing one PLE there in Lyon, but moving on probably once a year, just to give them that. I mean, it was really, really something special. And I mean, the fact that they sang Randy Orton's song in a different language as he came out, and that was like, I think, a first for him.
He was blown away. I mean, they had Randy Orton goosebumps.
Yes.
Like you watched him. The reaction was ridiculous.
Yes.
And you're talking about a guy who has main event in WrestleMania. I mean, anyone who's done it all.
Yeah. And then you saw the reaction there. Even when Kevin Owens on the SmackDown previous, when he was speaking French to that crowd and how they went and accepted that, and you almost you see the smile on his face. Priceless sort of stuff they're doing. Cody coming out, them singing along with every ounce of their heart to his song. And then most surprisingly, just the whole connection with the word phenomenal and it being, this pretty famous French song. And for them to go and sing it every time AJ went and just touched a ring rope, basically, and you could see it on his face. He's trying to play the heel, but he's like, holy crap, like they're singing in accordance to the stuff that I'm doing here. And again, this is a moment where you had two guys from Georgia going at it in the main event for the title. In my opinion, pretty damn good match for WWE.
Meltzer gave it 5 stars. That match was better than every Kurt Angle match of all time.
Evidently.
My biggest issue was the best match of the night, by the way. It was a good match, but it wasn't even the best match of the night. Like
It was really good, just predictable, of course. But the fans, again, they appreciated it. They didn't think of, oh, there was a botch in this match, and oh, this is shit. Every ounce and every moment that they were there, it was a party. It was a good place to be. You felt the great vibes, and it was just awesome.
Again, the crowd was the MVP of that night.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't for the crowd, Meltzer would not have given that match 5 stars. I don't know what Meltzer gave it. I was surprised he gave that match 5 stars. That match was not a 5-star match. It was a really good match. But shit, dude, that doesn't. I mean, again, though, he gives like 17-star matches to like the matches I'm going to bring up. So it's not like he's whatever. Fuck Meltzer, though. But yeah, no, I agree with you that not Lyon, France was special. But every time they do these international shows, it seems like the crowd really brings it.
Yeah.
And WWE has not been this hot since the Attitude Era. That's a reality.
Yeah.
Which again brings a lot of negativity towards AEW. I mean, we always say it. Vince McMahon is still in charge of WWE right now. We're not killing AEW. We're killing Vince, and we're killing WWE because Baron Corbin is still main eventing shows.
Right.
So I'm glad he found his place as a nice mid-carder who puts people over. Good job, Baron.
Yeah, but again, like, what we saw here with Backlash was probably one of the most memorable, editions of Backlash that I could ever recall, really. And
lowest rating.
I don't know, but it's still amazing in terms of the show itself.
But it didn't draw the numbers. And if you go by this idea that it's all about the money, this Backlash was a failure. I'm kidding, of course. If you watched it, it was great. But I'm just saying there's a lot of people that would certainly say certain things about something because it wasn't financially as big as other things, and they'll talk shit on it. This Backlash was one of the most unsuccessful PLEs WWE has had since under the Triple H era in terms of numbers. But again, it was very predictable.
And it had the highest gate, though.
The highest gate with no one, but they didn't have the lowest pay-per-view buys.
Oh, okay, I gotcha. I see what you're saying.
I don't know, and then also just watching, it didn't have most views. It was very low on the views. But the thing was, you and I talked about it. It wasn't an anticipated pay-per-view. We all knew it was going to happen. And that's why the crowd was so important, because you made an average pay-per-view, if not a below average pay-per-view, in terms of at least anticipation, and it turned it into something special. The crowd in Lyon made that a special night, to your point, which is 100% accurate for sure. And I would agree with that.
Even like the Jey Uso entrance, man.
Fuck Jey Uso. Come on.
But man, I thought it looked cool. I mean, it looked like. I'm sorry, man. I thought it looked cool.
I think I text you beforehand, and I put it on social media. I knew that entrance was going to be that crazy because I saw Friday night. If you saw Friday night, you knew the crowd was going to be special. If you saw the SmackDown prior, and I was like, his entrance is going to be off the chain.
Yeah, it definitely was. And I thought it was pretty cool how he went and gave credit to Bray Wyatt, saying the Fireflies were out, sort of like shine the light on him.
Jimmy's better. Jimmy's better. Come on.
Oh my God.
I just talk shit on Jey Uso. That's my thing on the show.
I see that. But
you like his yeet, you like his Macho Man yeet glasses? Is that what you like how he does this?
Cool.
You like how he's Pavlovian and everyone make sure they're doing this? Is that what you like?
Yeah, I like that.
Which is, by the way, this is also This is also Eric Bischoff on Conrad Thompson's head.
Wow.
Because he blows them.
I didn't realize the reference. Amazing. So yeah, with that, I don't know where you want to go.
To the top, baby. We're going to the top. Well, since we're now on WWE, one storyline that did happen that got accentuated at Backlash, which, by the way, we're both 5-0. No surprises there. The surprise of the night was all of us are expecting Jacob Fatu to show up. And instead of Jacob Fatu, it is the GOD partner of Tama Tonga, his brother, son of Haku. What's his name?
I don't know, Mr. Bullet Club.
Tangaleo.
Perineum.
Nice. Tangalao is his name.
That's it. There you
Tangalao. And so, by the way, their brother, Hakealeo, just won the IWGP Tag Team Championships with a guy I'm a big fan of, El Phantasmo. So they're actually GOD now, which is weird, but I digress.
Yeah.
But the original GOD is now in WWE. Tangaleo had his shot, his big debut that he fucking botched. Fucking guy botches his fucking debut. The referee's counting 1, 2, and the referee pushes himself out. Great job by the referee. But Tangaleo shows up, he debuts, and now we have this current Bloodline is more Bullet Club than it is Bloodline, isn't it? 2/3 of it.
There's a lot of pieces there, man, in terms of the Bullet Club.
You could make a faction of the Bullet Club now. Legitimately. Finn, AJ, and those two dudes.
Yeah.
And then you bring in Gallows and Anderson because anyone cares.
Well, fans of their comedy will be living it up at that moment.
They're DOA, aren't they? Holy shit.
Yeah.
They're not even over in fucking NXT. Get Gallows out of here. He can't work. But but so that was a big moment. And now you look at the Bloodline where you have GOD now, Tangaleo, Tama Tonga, and now Solo Sikoa as the meat and potatoes of the Bloodline, with Paul Heyman seemingly not in the know. And as we saw this past week on SmackDown, Solo Sikoa is now the acting member, the acting tribal chief. And the thing is that Paul Heyman came out and said he hasn't spoken to Roman Reigns, and he pulled him because he hasn't spoken to him. Solo has now said that he has spoken to Roman Reigns, and he has dubbed him the tribal chief, the interim tribal chief, I guess would be the best way to call it, which Solo's lying about. It's clearly The Rock is the guy. I think we both think that. I think I know you definitely think that. Where do you think this Bloodline goes? I think it's pretty obvious, which is the only danger I see in this storyline, that it's really obvious where they're going. Really obvious for me. So I hope they have a surprise or a wrinkle or a curveball somewhere in the midst of this, because I think we all think that The Rock is going to come back and be the tribal chief. Roman's going to come back with the Usos, and then you're going to have Usos. You're going to have the Usos and Roman versus GOD and Solo Sikoa, and maybe that's when Jacob Fatu shows up, or maybe that's where The Rock shows himself as to be the real tribal chief who's making the calls. I'm not sure, but the thing is where most people think it's going. Vladi Dottie, what do you think of this Bloodline storyline, where we're headed, what we're going to do, and is it going to work if it's really obvious where they're going?
You know what? I don't know how obvious. I think it'll be obvious because we're headed towards a civil war. So, okay, who's the participants here with them, and what sides are they on? Which is really what we're going to look at. And what it comes down to is Solo is completely full of shit. He hasn't talked to Roman. Roman hasn't talked to anybody. Your truth meter, your barometer of honesty there is, of all people, Paul Heyman. Ironically enough. So you have a scenario there where Solo is taken over. He's got GOD backing him. Heyman doesn't know how to read them. Heyman sort of needs them. They're picking up on Heyman making eyes at Jay, almost like with a signal of help. I need help with this guy. He's out of his mind. And what I think will happen is eventually Roman will return. And one of the things that has been obvious, when anytime there's Solo has a microphone in front of him, the crowd is already chanting, "We want Roman."
Solo is not a fucking top guy.
It's beyond
Can we
that.
say it?
But
Can we make,
I agree. Yeah, I agree. But the thing is, the fans miss Roman already.
The thing is, Solo's doing, and I'm sure this is on purpose. He's doing his best version of Roman. With when he actually called Paul Heyman out and he said, "I love you, wise man. I love you." Very reminiscent of how Roman treated Paul Heyman in times of strife.
Right.
So, but the thing is, Solo is not the guy. And I don't know if they're trying to make him the guy or trying to build him as a top heel.
He's the guy's puppet. He's the Rock's puppet. So basically, Roman will come back, and he'll be there with the wise man, and then Roman will call out Solo in front of everybody. Say, why did you lie? And accuse him, and that's when they'll go and drop the bit about the Rock, and maybe that's where you see Jacob Fatu going and attacking Roman. Maybe it's all four of them going at Roman.
Jacob Fatu's going to be a big-time star, by the way.
Yeah, and then you're already seeing, I don't know how. Let me put it this way. We see rumors, and, either you can call bullshit or not care about them. But there's certain rumors where you say, and you look at them, and you could say, yeah, I could see that. And one of the things I saw this week was that WWE is a little bit concerned about how Jacob Fatu will go and basically look next to Solo and maybe steal his thunder.
And he would.
I definitely could see it. Yes.
Because they both have that Umaga vibe where they're these Samoan destruction machines. And but Jacob Fatu can cut a promo, and he does moves that Rob Van Dam does. Yeah. He does things that Solo hasn't even attempted. I mean, what does Solo do? A splash onto a table? What makes Solo special? I'm not trying to bury the kid. He's young.
Yeah.
But what makes him special right now to the point where he should be in this position? Because right now, SmackDown doesn't have a top heel. They don't have no top heels on SmackDown, which is why we got to turn LA Knight heel. So
yeah. But yeah, so this is one of the things to consider now as we're looking at this bloodline civil war. And as what I think we're going to start realizing is when The Rock is away, doesn't necessarily mean that The Rock is away. He's still watching. He still has puppets there. And this is going to be part of his brilliance, if you will. So, honestly, it's going to be pretty cool, I think, when Roman returns. And that crowd is going to show him, of all things, love. It's crazy, and he hasn't even been gone for all that long.
I mean, they're chanting, we want Roman a lot. They even chanted during a Cody Rhodes, or they said, thank you, Roman. The respect that Roman has now with the crowd is at an all-time high. Everyone that took part in that storyline closing at WrestleMania, we all know it's a work. We all know it's a TV show. So everyone knows how important Roman was to that, because he was the one that we hated so much and wanted that title off of him so much. So I think it's a very beautiful thing that he's getting his flowers now. He's been doing it for a decade. He's been in that company more than a decade. But he's been a top guy for about a decade. In 5 years, he was entertaining with it. But it's been the most recent 5 years. And Roman, the guy's great. And when he comes back, the appreciation he's going to feel is going to be something that he's never experienced before in his whole career, which he deserves. And so does Seth Rollins when he comes back as well. It's just, everyone who took part in that storyline toward the end was instrumental in what they did. And it was one of the greatest moments in wrestling history, whether you want to admit it or not, whether Cody is a great champion or Roman didn't defend his title. It doesn't matter. That moment at WrestleMania 40 was one of the greatest moments in wrestling history. And I don't care what anyone says, because it gets you here. It got millions of people right here.
Yeah.
Maybe more so than any other specific, only individual moment than I ever remember.
Yeah.
But who knows?
No, yeah, I mean, you are correct with that. Absolutely. So, and this is the environment in which they are operating out of currently, where Cody's the guy. And you have the subplot now with Roman, where Roman can return. And it's not necessarily like, hey, Roman's got to get involved in the world title mix. It's not that. He's got to get his own house in order.
Question for you.
Yeah.
Does Cody drop the belt to The Rock? And does Roman and Rock have that match at WrestleMania next year? Or is it going to be Cody and The Rock?
I think it's Cody and The Rock. So all signs are pointing to that.
And what do you do with Roman then?
It's a great question, man. I don't know if it's more internal with the Civil War remains there. I don't know. Would it be him against Jacob Fatu?
I think it's going to depend on how Cody gets over as champion. Or they start booing him in 6 months. It's going to be Roman and The Rock.
You already started booing him.
So have you. Nice spot with Carmelo Hayes. And look at this.
Hey,
what the fuck are they doing there?
But merely weeks later, he got 5 stars from Meltzer. So I like to call things down the middle around here. So he's on an uptick.
That's because Meltzer is buddies with AJ and Cody.
5 stars is 5 stars, Mr. Valley.
Was that his 5-star match, Vladdy?
What's that?
Was that a 5-star match? Come on.
Evidently, and then, yeah.
No, in your book, not Meltzer's book. And by the way, if you want to do that, if you're going to agree with that, I'll bring up a lot of matches that he's put 5 stars on that you're going to be mad about.
Well, they better not mention a certain tag team from Cucamonga.
They've been in a couple 5-star matches. Pal.
Oh, my God. So, yeah, I don't know. And so, yeah, I don't know. I mean, in regards to that, it is what it is.
It was a good match for Cody. He needed a good first title defense, but we knew exactly what it was going to be. AJ was going to go out there and make Cody look like $1 million, which AJ did. It was a good match for AJ because it showed that he's still the man and he can still go out and have great matches. But I didn't think that match was special in any way, shape, or form, with the exception of the crowd. It was a good match, but was it better than AJ versus Cena anytime? Was it better than AJ versus, which by the way didn't get 5 stars? Was it better than AJ versus Brock Lesnar, champion versus champion Survivor Series in terms of WWE matches? No. AJ's had much better matches that Meltzer didn't give the same rating to. But he's buddies with Cody. He's buddies with AJ. And that's why Meltzer can't be taken seriously. And hey, one last thing tonight. You have been paying attention to my guy, my favorite wrestler, my guy who I've told you is one of the most honest, decent human beings in this business ever, Kenny Omega, who has been absolutely killing Meltzer's rating system over the last several months. What's your opinion of Kenny Omega? And also, you have a certain vibe that Kenny Omega is not very happy in AEW. Give me your spiel on Kenny Omega right now with Meltzer and, of course, what his future may be.
Kenny's been quite the open book on his Twitch broadcasts here. And, I've been seeing clips online, social media, and I mean, hell, I've even seen Cornette cover it in a different light, which is absolutely crazy to me. And just seeing this Kenny being approached on different topics and seeing his reaction to it, I've been surprised at some of these things, and I almost feel like I'm seeing him here at AEW. I almost sense that he's writing things out. They have this storyline. They got to approach it, and thank God he's involved in the storyline, because, as I mentioned last week, that was probably the best promo I've ever seen him cut in AEW. I felt that angle with the EVPs was needed, and he needed to be in the mix. Makes all the sense in the world. But as he continues to talk, he's been pretty critical of Meltzer, who they've had a pretty copacetic relationship, I would say, is the safe sort of way to describe it. And he's been critiquing Meltzer, of all people, and sort of taking some shots at Ospreay as well, which I'm sure they're building up their future feud here. And then otherwise, you also have a situation where, as Kenny's approaching these things, he's also described Triple H being more open to different styles of wrestling. And he's also commented about how he liked how Roman has been presented as a champion.
Yep.
So with that being said, and he's sort of admiring, the competition from afar, if you will, he'd be a fool to not take notice of that. And I'm not saying, it's 100%, but I'd say, in my eyes, it's a lot better percentage of him going there after he's done with his contract at AEW to WWE this now than I was certain, say, maybe 6 months ago.
Well, I mean, we even speculated that he might be going to WWE his prior contract. So, I mean, again, WWE, because it's such a red hot product and because Triple H has turned so many of the negatives that Vince McMahon was and what was about WWE. Even Gunther came out and said that he hated the Vince McMahon product. Most people with brains in their heads didn't like the Vince McMahon product. And there were WWE sycophants 4 years ago saying that Vince McMahon's still a genius and he's killing it. No, he was terrible. The biggest reason people hate Tony Khan now is because Vince McMahon is not there. So that's not, to me, you're going to see a lot of people now who would never want to go back to WWE. They now will have an open mind because the sexism isn't there. He's not shitting on anybody's faces. He's not having distraction roll up as a finish 3 times a week. I mean, we can go on the litany of problems that Vince McMahon had as a booker the last decade or so. When Triple H took over, he fixed, the glaring issues we used to bitch and cry about earlier in the early days of this show, when Vince was still there. A lot of those problems are gone. It's not a bad place to work anymore. People aren't on eggshells. People know what they're doing. It's a great time to be in WWE. Now, it looked like it was going that way a year ago or whenever he re-signed his contract. But yeah, sure, Kenny wants to. He has said prior to AEW, he always said he wanted to have a high-profile match with AJ Styles, preferably at WrestleMania. Could we see that in 2026? It's a good possibility at this point. Now, AJ's going to be 50 or close to it. And Kenny's going to be 42, 43. I don't know what kind of match they can have, but it's definitely on the table, man. I would never suggest that. I mean, we even thought it was on the table a year ago. So it's definitely worth speculating on in about a year and a half, but we'll see what Kenny's doing now. But Kenny has always had a lot of love for Roman. He always has. He doesn't kill people just to kill people. And he's said a lot of positive things about WWE in the past, not just recently. So the one thing he always was consistently critical of is that he didn't like the way WWE portrayed professional wrestling under Vince McMahon. And Triple H now does, to what he said and to what MJF has said, Triple H is open to the different flavors of ice cream, to quote MJF, that wrestling presents. All different types. And he's going to do it in a way that he thinks he can make money. Look, Triple H is a genius, and if he's not a genius, he's just a very competent booker and knows what the hell he is doing. And Kenny knows that, and Kenny sees that moment you brought it up that Roman is presented the way I would like to be presented.
Yep.
He's not the only AEW superstar that thinks that.
Right. And you can even see, we mentioned the amount of people from the Bullet Club currently there. If they sort of are extended and are remaining in the company until Kenny arrives, especially Cody.
It's a long time away, though, brother. So long away.
Yeah.
Is Gallows and Anderson going to be? Is Gallows and Anderson going to be in WWE?
Yeah, but that's a non-factor. Those two guys are non-factors, really, at that point.
How dare you besmirch Luke Gallows? You son of a bitch.
You're the same guy that just said they couldn't cut it in NXT.
You should get punched in the dick for saying that.
I'm sorry for speaking the truth. But, so I could see Kenny going there, and And what's a unique too is like you have Cody sort of trying to become the belt collector sort of situation with this Logan Paul title match now.
I'm surprised it's happening so quickly.
It's
But
interesting, right?
it's interesting. I mean, a lot of people are suggesting it's going to be a double disqualification. I think Cody wins. I think it's going to be similar to a babyface thing that Seth Rollins did when he won the U.S. title from John Cena, was title versus title. And then he loses the week later, a month later, for whatever reason. Maybe he defends it twice. We'll see what happens. But I like the promo with Logan and Cody. I think Cody was able to get his baby face off. Logan Paul annoys me, but that's his job. So,
yeah,
it's
a hell of a job of that.
He does annoy me. As a human being, he's just a piece of shit. So, he just is what it is. You go to his YouTube page.
Have you ever had a Prime drink?
No, I don't. No, I wouldn't. That motherfucker is lucky he gets some of my attention, let alone any of my money. So, and I want his brother. To get his fucking teeth knocked down his throat by Mike Tyson.
There you go. Well, it could very well happen for sure. So.
And I don't want Mike Tyson to beat Logan Paul as well. But
man, I see how it is.
We'll see how Logan Paul continues to go. I mean, they have a good job of protecting him and showcasing him in a way that he needs to be presented, which is good.
Yeah. Yeah, he's pretty much spot on right there.
Promos are boring.
I get it. He's rich. He's famous.
He's rich and famous. He has a YouTube channel. Good for him. He went toe-to-toe with Floyd Mayweather. He did go toe-to-toe with Floyd Mayweather, though. Floyd Mayweather is like 120 pounds, but still couldn't knock out a drunk bee. Like buzzing around.
Quick question. Did you see the Ilya Dragunov versus Ricochet match?
Amazing.
You liked it? Okay, I was just curious.
No, my friend John Luxa said it was amazing, so I'm just going by his thing. I fast forward Ricochet matches.
I got you. All right. Well,
and he's a great performer. It's indie stuff. It's indie stuff, and it's not as good as other indie stuff that I like to watch. But I haven't given Ricochet a fair chance.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, they're trying to build up Ilya Dragunov as well, and I was curious to see what your vibes were on him, like the promo that led into the match and how he wrestled and all that. Yeah, I was just curious.
What do you think about him? Well, I know my buddy John Luxa, who might be covering NXT for us. He is a NXT guru, loves it, and he literally said Dragunov. Which, by the way, how come no one's called him Jackanoff? Wouldn't that be the best name for him? If you were gonna make fun of him, what's up, Jackanoff? Anyway, John said he's a top 5 in-ring performer in the world.
Wow.
I don't know. What are your feelings? I haven't seen enough of him to make that.
I've now seen 2 matches of his on the main roster. And I know there's a match where he and Gunther, or there's like maybe even a trilogy between he and Gunther, where they were very highly regarded. I did not personally see them, but the 2 matches I saw with him on the main roster recently, in the first match, I remember him using some sort of headbutt, like as a finisher. I wasn't too crazy about it. And then in this match against Ricochet, he went and used sort of a different move where he just sort of like pounded him like with his forearm while Ricochet's head was against the mat. And it looked pretty brutal. It was almost like, the Will Ospreay sort of deal. So, I didn't think that was a bad thing. Plus, he could do that to any sized opponent he has, which basically would help his cause for sure. He has talent. He's in shape. And it's one of those things where when you and I were watching like Nitro and ECW back in the day, we like these guys like Eddie Guerrero, Malenko, one that will, I guess, remain nameless, Jericho.
Prince Sikoa?
Prince Mahi Mahi. So
Was that
He
did Jericho
dragged-
call him that? That's great.
Yeah,
Jericho was so
yeah.
good back. Remember when Jericho was good?
Good, yeah. Remember those days? But yeah, so I could see Dragunov like, mixing in the ring with those sort of guys like Perry Saturn and not skip a beat. So he's a little bit of a throwback in my mind when I watch him.
Perry
But,
Saturn got a face tattoo now. Why the hell did he get a face tattoo in his 40s? Fucked up. Was it Tyson?
I don't know, man. He seems like he's had a hard life though.
Life's a drag.
But yeah, so Dragunov, I think there's a lot of potential there. One of the things I'm wondering, like Imperium just lost a member. Do they consider maybe adding him to it? And and if he's sort of like the muscle behind, Gunther in ways, and sort of watching his back, it's not bad,
That, and also he can wind up being a bigger star because he and Gunther can wind up going at it toe to toe.
Yeah. Yeah.
You wonder where you would assume Gunther's going to win the King of the Ring. Is he your pick to win King of the Ring, or who's your pick?
Yeah. It's Gunther. Absolutely.
Not the Yeet Master.
No.
It's going to be Gunther and Yeet Master in the finals, though.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think it's going to be
of the finals of Raw, by the way, not the finals of in general, but the finals on Raw, semifinals, I guess what would be called.
Yeah.
Who do you think SmackDown winner is going to be? The LA Knight? Tamatanga?
You know what? And what's another thing I read is that they're making some of these like house shows, like these matches. They're not even televising some of them.
Yeah, which is whatever.
So
the first rounds are usually not very. The King of the Ring first rounds are usually boring, but they are taking it seriously this time around. I like the fact that it's a bunch of, main event status people. It's not a bunch of mid carders. It's not fucking like what the last King of the Ring, Zelina Vega was a odds-on favorite if you looked at the mid, because they were all a bunch of mid carders that we didn't even know.
Yeah.
We never get Piper Niven and Zelina Vega were the finals, for fuck's sake.
Actually, I wouldn't be surprised if you saw Gunther versus
that was a great match.
Gunther versus Randy Orton.
Orton would be one. Yeah, Gunther and Orton would be another one. You got to do someone LA Knight though. LA Knight's right now is he's just whatever.
He's just out there twisting, man.
He needs to turn heel. He is now stagnant. Still getting a decent reaction, but if they don't do something with him soon, you missed the boat on him, I think. But I think they turn him heel. We've already talked about it. I think the idea now is because you have no top heels on SmackDown, you turn him heel and let him be the showcase. Maybe even beat Cody at SummerSlam.
Yeah, they might have to do something drastic. But then again, SmackDown's going to become the secondary show in ways, right?
Not with Cody on it.
Mm.
And you're also on network television.
Well, yeah, I guess. I mean, what they're that is going to USA Network from Fox, right?
Yes, but it's still gonna be Friday nights.
Okay, gotcha. Interesting.
And the fact that Cody is still the guy there, plus the bloodline. Yeah. I don't think SmackDown's the B show until at least after WrestleMania next year, if that's the case.
I think Raw becomes the show when it goes on Netflix. I think they're gonna go make it more adult and 3 hours of it.
When maybe you get Cody back on SmackDown or back on Raw, and then they swap their championships. Cody in likelihood. See, I'm of the opinion it's going to be Rock Roman next year, not Cody Roman. Now you could have Roman waiting in the wings or the Rock waiting in the rings and then wings, and then maybe you have the Rock Cody night one, and then you got Cody Roman. I don't know, but I think Roman and Rock is going to be the match, me personally. So that would give Cody, if he's not a champion, could be drafted to Raw. And they certainly have to make up for this past draft being a waste of time. That it was a disaster.
Hey, they haven't made trades yet. You watch.
Yeah, well, whatever. Whatevs.
Yeah.
Triple H knows what he's doing. He's doing a good job. So By the way, and also one more last thing. I think AEW product has been really good the last month in terms of stories. The crowd's not loud. They're not drawing people. You have the NBA and the NHL playoffs, which I'm sure is taking some viewers away. Maybe not a lot, but they have been a lot. They've been around 700 grand the last month, except for the 1 week they did the 816 when they showed that stupid footage of the high school fight that CM Punk bragged about being a choke artist. But that's okay. When CM Punk is controversial and he references AEW, he's a saint and he's great. But AEW brings anything up, they're scumbags. I get it.
Who are you talking to?
People in general, not you particularly. Don't take it so personally.
Okay.
What do you think about CM Punk calling out making that AEW reference again?
I thought that promo fell flat. I can't hear anything you're doing.
Oh, I'll have to enter an alarm. Holy shit! I love CM Punk. He might be my favorite promo ever. But his promos have been cookie cutter and not so great. That's why I say DM Hunk, Drew McIntyre, has beat him in promos. Holy cow, I'm glad you said that. I thought his last couple of promos have been bad. Like, it's just like he's kind of going for the normal shit. He's recycling old shit he said. I don't know.
I mean, until he gets clearance, they're playing a game of cat and mouse here, and they're killing time.
Showed up in a nice car. He's a fucking corporate really sellout bitch.
It was a nice car.
Just like DM Hunk said, just like Drew McIntyre said, he is not anti-authority. He is not a renegade. He is not a rebel. He is a corporate kiss ass. Just like Drew McIntyre said, a good little superstar. That's CM Punk now. He's not the voice of the voiceless. He's the voice of the corporation. Clown. Drew McIntyre. But Vladi, they might be facing each other at Clash at the Castle in June. I couldn't hear you.
I can't hear you. So
I couldn't hear you either. I was registering though. I couldn't hear you at all. I don't know if there was a connection with your issue.
That's good. I couldn't hear anyone. Yeah.
Okay.
What I said. Hear you. I kept on saying I can't hear you. Can't hear you now.
I can. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm registering, so I think it's just on your end for whatever the reason. But
okay.
Why did you think that promo? I agree with you. I think his last two promos have fell flat. To be honest,
there's always a hockey connection, and this and that, and then truthfully, I think most of the audience at WWE doesn't really know of the drama at AEW. I don't think they care. They don't know what the fuck. They don't know what the fuck a Jungle Boy is. And in some ways, their ignorance is bliss. I wish I was them in some ways.
No shit. No kidding. Not like I'm a choke artist, Pat, because Pat McAfee's also a guy that I always like to punch down AEW. He's another guy with him and his group of cronies that kiss his ass on his stupid show that I do not watch. I'm a fan of the drive-thru and the experience.
There you go.
I'm a fan of the drive-thru because I eat in drive-thrus, and the experience usually has drugs involved. So,
oh wow. So yeah, I mean, with that in mind, man, regards to who we're talking about, Cody or
we're talking about CM Punk. Come on, CM Punk and CM Punk versus DM Hunk.
I don't know, man. We're getting off the rails at points, and I'm like, where do we go? You get the drug experience. You threw me for a loop.
I've been throwing you for loops for 3 years. You should be used to it by now, sir.
Yeah. But yeah, Punk in general, like I felt like we're sort of spinning our tires at this point, and it's just like they can't have any physicality. So then, okay, McIntyre has this injury, which I'm sure is just made up at this point, right? So
it just, yeah, I
yeah,
don't think they wanted anyone to. I think they have a certain person they want to win this thing. I think it's Gunther, and I didn't think they wanted to job Lashley, and I don't think they wanted to job McIntyre either. And that's the other thing. How did Lashley even get hurt? He hasn't even fucking wrestling. Like what the?
right. Yeah. So this is, there's definitely a course that's involved for Gunther, and you know what? If it's Gunther versus, where's the main event being held? Is it in Saudi Arabia?
Saudi Arabia, where
Oh,
you can have
interesting.
your vagina cut out for talking the truth if you're a woman.
Wow.
I don't know if that's true. That's what I
We're
heard.
just throwing shit against the wall at this point. But yeah, I mean, that seems like a pretty good main event. Yeah, and then
You got Paul Cody. You're gonna have one of the both tag team champions. I don't even care about. Wow. I definitely don't care about the SmackDown tag champions because they suck. And I don't really care for R-Truth and Miz. R-Truth got his moment. That's great, but it's not like their matches are good. It's not like it's real. It's not like they're a real tag team. Neither one of them are real tag teams.
No.
So they got to fix this tag team. Both tag divisions are struggling right now.
Bischoff thinks both of them failed. They're currently champions. They're failures.
He gets a paycheck every once in a while from WWE, so he's going to keep his mouth shut when it comes to being critical of WWE. He's a good. Yeah. He knows what side his bread is buttered on. Scoundrel.
Yeah. Scoundrel he is, man. But
well, so now we're
bookend.
We have a nice sandwich of just talking shit on Eric Bischoff. Let's end the show there. We've been doing it for a while here, folks. Thank you so much for listening. Lottie Dottie, I can tell you're running out of gas. I'm running out. I need some fuel. I'm going to go do some of Mother Nature's finest, thinking of RVD. And then I'm going to hit the sack. But thanks a lot. Great episode, this one. We want to thank everyone for listening. Lottie Dottie, I'm sure you're excited about where we're heading in professional wrestling. AEW, WWE. We're going to try to start incorporating some TNA and NXT in the mix in some of our content. So stay tuned for that as we continue to grow our brand. So everyone, thank you so much for watching and listening to High Spots and Cheap Pops for Lottie Dottie. This is Silicon Steve Valley. Hit the subscribe button, and here endeth the lesson.